Imagine standing on the edge of a pier at dusk, watching the waves roll in, completely unaware that beneath the surface something ancient and patient is awakening. The ocean you think you know, the one filled with sharks and whales and dolphins, is vanishing. Not tomorrow, not in some distant apocalypse, but slowly, silently, over centuries. The waters are warming, the oxygen is thinning, and the light that once danced through coral gardens is fading into permanent twilight. In this new ocean, the old rules of survival no longer apply. Speed and strength are becoming obsolete. What thrives now is patience, deception, and something far more unsettling: the ability to wait. Welcome to the dead zone, where the hunters do not chase their prey. They simply let their prey come to them. Scientists call them hypoxic zones, stretches of ocean where oxygen levels have dropped so low that most life cannot survive. These underwater deserts are expanding every year, blooming across coastlines like dark bruises on the planet's skin. For decades, researchers assumed these zones were biological wastelands, empty except for bacteria and the occasional jellyfish drifting through the gloom. But then the hydrophones started picking up something strange. Low-frequency pulses, rhythmic and deep, echoing through the anoxic water like a heartbeat from the abyss. When submersibles were finally sent down to investigate, they found something that should not have been there. Something massive, something alive, and it was not moving. Meet the slumbering titan, a creature that has turned metabolic shutdown into an art form. Descended from ancient sleeper sharks and deep-dwelling catfish, this predator has evolved to survive in waters so depleted of oxygen that a single breath would kill most fish. Its body is swollen and pale, covered in a thick layer of mucus that reduces oxygen loss through the skin. Its gills barely flutter, processing what little oxygen remains with terrifying efficiency. But the most disturbing adaptation is its metabolism. The titan can slow its heart rate to 1 beat per hour, entering a state that hovers between life and death. It does not hunt. It does not patrol. It simply sinks into the soft mud of the seabed and waits, sometimes for months, until something edible drifts close enough to strike. The horror is not in the violence of the attack, but in the stillness that precedes it. Imagine a remotely operated vehicle gliding through the murky water, its lights cutting through clouds of drifting algae. The camera pans slowly across the seafloor, capturing what looks like a volcanic formation, a mound of rock crusted with barnacles and sediment. The scientists watching the live feed barely give it a second glance. But then one of them notices something. The rock has an eye. Not a closed eye, not a dormant eye, but an open, unblinking eye that has been watching the camera this entire time. The mound shifts, just slightly, and suddenly the entire shape resolves into something alive. The titan rises from the mud like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion, its massive jaws opening to reveal rows of backward-facing teeth designed to trap anything that ventures too close. This is not the hunting strategy of an apex predator. This is the strategy of a trap, a living landmine buried in the silt. The titan does not need to be fast or clever. It only needs to be invisible and patient. In the oxygen-starved waters of the future, energy is the most precious resource, and the titan has learned to conserve every ounce of it. While other predators burn calories chasing prey through the water, the titan lies in wait, its body temperature dropping to match the surrounding sediment, its scent masked by the chemical stench of decay that fills the dead zone. To the crabs and flatfish that scuttle across the seabed, the titan is indistinguishable from the rocks and debris that litter the ocean floor, until it is too late. But what happens when the prey itself becomes invisible? As the water grows murkier and the light continues to fade, even the most advanced eyes become useless. Vision, once the dominant sense of ocean predators, is slowly being rendered obsolete. In the perpetual twilight of the future ocean, a new kind of hunter is emerging, one that does not rely on sight at all. Instead, it listens, it feels, it reads the electrical signatures of muscle contractions and heartbeats, mapping the invisible world around it with senses we can barely comprehend. These predators do not chase their prey through the darkness. They guide them, they lure them, they make the prey come willingly, drawn by signals that feel like safety, like companionship, like home. The The slumbering titan is just the beginning. It represents the first stage of a transformation that is sweeping through the oceans, a shift from active hunting to passive ambush, from pursuit to deception. In the acts that follow, we will explore creatures that have taken this strategy even further, predators that do not just hide in the environment but become the environment itself. We will meet hunters that weaponize sound and pressure, turning physics into a lethal tool. We will encounter parasites that hijack the minds of their hosts, turning prey into unwilling accomplices. And finally, we will confront the new apex predator, a creature so vast and so patient that it has become indistinguishable from the ocean itself. The question is no longer whether these creatures exist in our future ocean. The question is whether we will recognize them as predators at all. Because in a world where the hunters no longer move, where they no longer chase, where they simply wait for you to make the fatal mistake of trusting your instincts, how do you know when you have swum into the jaws of something that has been watching you all along? The ocean is changing, and with it, the very definition of what it means to hunt. The dead zone is not dead. It is just waiting, and so is everything inside it. If the slumbering titan is the passive landmine of the seabed, our next predator is something far more insidious. A hunter that doesn't just wait for you, but actively calls you into the dark. We are moving away from the bottom now, drifting up into the mid-water column, a place that in the future ocean has become a permanent, murky twilight. Algal blooms, fed by warming waters and agricultural runoff, have turned the once clear blue into a thick, greenish soup. Here, vision is a liability. Eyes are easily fooled by the scattering light, and shapes dissolve into shadows just a few meters away. In this blinding fog, survival requires a different kind of sense. And for one creature, that sense has become a weapon. Meet the static wraith. At first glance, it looks like a ghost. A pale, flattened ribbon of muscle and cartilage that ripples silently through the gloom. It is a descendant of the electric rays we know today, but evolution has stripped away the bulk and the bottom-dwelling habits. The wraith is free-swimming, elegant, and terrifyingly almost invisible to the naked eye. But you don't need to see the wraith to know it's there. If you were a fish in this future ocean, you would feel it before you ever saw it. A subtle hum in the water, a faint, rhythmic tingling against your lateral line. It feels like the movement of other fish. Feels like safety. This is the genius of the wraith's hunting strategy, active electroluring. Modern electric rays use their power to stun prey or defend themselves, delivering massive, brute force shocks. The wraith can still do that if it needs to, but its primary tool is far more delicate. It possesses highly specialized electric organs capable of projecting a weak, modulated field that mimics the bioelectric signature of a distressed school of fish. In the murky, terrifying emptiness of the mid-water, schooling fish are desperate for company. They are hardwired to seek out the electrical flutter of their own kind, because numbers mean safety. The wraith hacks this instinct. Imagine you are a small, solitary mackerel, separated from your school in the dense algae. You are blind, vulnerable, and panic is setting in. Then you sense it, a familiar pattern of electrical pulses coming from the darkness ahead. It feels like a dozen other fish moving together, feeding, alive. Your instinct screams at you to join them, to merge with the group. You swim toward the signal, relieved to have found safety. You push through the cloud of green silt, expecting to see the silver flash of your kin. But there is nothing there. Just the open water and the pulsing signal, getting stronger, pulling you in like a magnet. The horror of the static wraith is that its prey often swims directly into its mouth without ever realizing they are in danger. The wraith hovers vertically in the water column, its body nearly transparent, its mouth gaping wide. It doesn't lunge. It doesn't chase. It simply adjusts the frequency of its lure, fine-tuning the signal to match the specific panic response of its target. It is a siren song, but one sung in voltage rather than sound. As the prey draws closer, the wraith might twitch its fins slightly to create a pressure wave that mimics the displacement of a swimming neighbor, adding a tactile layer to the deception. But what happens when the trap is sprung? The transition from seduction to violence is instantaneous. Once the prey is within striking distance, perhaps only inches from the wraith's face. The deception ends. The wraith switches its output from a gentle, luring hum to a high-voltage discharge in a fraction of a second. It's not enough to kill, just enough to seize the muscles of the prey in a titanic cramp. The fish freezes, its gills flared, its body rigid. It drifts helplessly into the waiting maw, stunned by the very creature it thought was its salvation. This evolutionary twist, using electricity not as a bludgeon, but as a puppet string, marks a disturbing shift in the predator-prey dynamic. It suggests an ocean where sensors are more important than muscles, where the battle is fought in the invisible spectrum of fields and frequencies. The static wraith turns the prey's own survival instincts against it. It exploits the desperate need for connection in a lonely, dying ocean. It is a hunter that understands the psychology of its victims as well as their biology. We leave the wraith drifting in the green haze, its invisible net cast wide, waiting for the next lost soul to seek comfort in the wrong place. But the ocean is deep, and deception comes in many forms. As we descend further, leaving the algal blooms behind for the crushing pressure of the twilight zone, we find that some predators don't just mimic other animals. Some have learned to mimic safety itself, building structures so intricate and inviting that you would never guess they are actually digestive systems in disguise. The invisible net is terrifying, but the living trap is a nightmare all its own. We have seen the trap that waits in the mud, and the lure that sings in the dark. But as we descend deeper into the crushing blackness of the bathypelagic zone, the strategies of survival become even more twisted. Down here, there is no sunlight, only the occasional flash of bioluminescence, a star's cape of hungry ghosts. In this alien world, some predators have abandoned the idea of hunting altogether. Instead, they have evolved to become something their prey desperately needs: a home. Welcome to the domain of the glass weaver, a creature that proves the most dangerous trap is the one that looks exactly like salvation. In the vast, open emptiness of the deep ocean, shelter is the rarest commodity of all. There are no coral reefs here, no caves, no kelp forests to hide in. For small crustaceans and vulnerable fry, the deep is a nightmare of exposure. They spend their lives searching for anything solid, anything that might offer a moment of respite from the currents and the predators. And that is exactly what the glass weaver provides. Floating silently in the void, it resembles a beautiful, intricate lattice of spun glass, a spiraling cathedral of transparent fibers that glows with a soft, welcoming warmth. But the weaver is not a plant, nor is it a single animal. It is a colonial organism, a terrifying evolution of ancient siphonophores and predatory tunicates. Each strand of its glass-like structure is actually a colony of thousands of specialized zooids, working in perfect unison. Some form the rigid, structural beams that give the colony its shape. Others are tasked with generating the soft, steady light that beckons from miles away. And then there are the feeders, tiny, microscopic mouths lining the inner walls of the spiral, waiting for guests to arrive. Imagine you are a deep-sea shrimp, exhausted and exposed. You spot the weaver's glow in the distance. To your primitive eyes, it looks like a piece of drifting sponge or a rare deep-water coral, a fortress against the dark. You swim towards it. Guided by chemical trails the weaver releases into the water. These aren't just random scents. They are synthetic pheromones, chemically engineered to mimic the smell of a thriving, safe ecosystem. The weaver doesn't just look like a home. It smells like one, too. It is a lie constructed on a molecular level. You enter the spiral, finding a cozy nook between the glowing struts. The water inside is calm, shielded from the currents. You settle in, believing you have found a sanctuary. But slowly, imperceptibly, the architecture around you begins to change. The rigid glass walls soften. The lattice tightens. You don't notice it at first because the movement is so slow, synchronized with the rhythm of the ocean itself. The safe branch you are resting on is actually a digestive tentacle, and it is waking up. This is the horror of the glass weaver. It consumes its prey not with violence, but with patience. Once a victim has settled inside the colony, the structure creates a seal, closing off the exits with sheets of mucus. Then the digestion begins. It is not a quick bite, but a slow chemical dissolution. The walls of your sanctuary begin to weep enzymes. The shrimp doesn't panic. It simply falls asleep, seduced by the same pheromones that lured it in, while its body is slowly broken down into nutrients that feed the entire colony. The weaver eats you while you sleep in its arms. This adaptation, colonial mimicry, reverses the natural order of the ocean. Usually, predators hide in the environment. The weaver is the environment. It exploits the fundamental psychological need for safety, weaponizing the very instinct that drives prey to seek shelter. In a world of endless black water, the weaver offers a false horizon, a mirage of solidity that is actually more fluid and deadly than the water itself. It is a hunter that builds a house for its food, and then locks the door. As we leave the glowing spiral of the weaver behind, drifting further down into the abyss, the silence of the deep is suddenly shattered. We are entering a zone where deception is replaced by brute physics, where hunters don't need to touch you to kill you. The next predator we face has turned its own body into a cannon, capable of unleashing forces hotter than the surface of the sun. The trap is terrifying, but the gun is instant. We have seen predators that wait, predators that lure, and predators that build. They all share one quality: patience. They are the quiet assassins of the slow, suffocating future ocean. But patience is not the only path to survival. Sometimes, physics offers a more direct solution. As we move away from the mesmerizing glow of the glass weaver and descend into the deep scattering layer, a zone of the ocean that migrates vertically every day, we encounter a hunter that has abandoned stealth for pure, explosive violence. This is not a creature of silence. It is a living gun. The deep scattering layer is filled with small, quick prey: lanternfish, bristlemouths, and squid that dart through the water like erratic fireflies. To catch them, you need speed, but in the high-pressure viscosity of the deep, speed is expensive. It burns energy that most creatures cannot afford to waste. Enter the pistol maw, a distant, monstrous descendant of the pistol shrimp, but scaled up to the size of a barracuda. It drifts innocuously in the currents, a slender, silver phantom with a jaw that seems too long, too heavy for its body. But this jaw is not just for biting. It is a high-precision hydraulic mechanism. The pistol maw's hunting strategy is based on a phenomenon called cavitation, a violent physical reaction that happens when water is moved faster than it can flow. The maw tracks a school of lanternfish, its large, sensitive eyes locking onto the bioluminescent flashes of its prey. It doesn't lunge. It doesn't bite. Instead, it drifts closer, closing the distance until it is just a few inches away. Then, with a twitch of specialized muscles in its neck, it snaps its lower jaw shut. The movement is so fast, happening in microseconds, that the human eye would see nothing but a blur. But the physics of that snap are catastrophic. The jaw moves so quickly that it creates a region of low pressure behind it, tearing the water apart and forming a bubble of vapor. This isn't a gentle bubble. It is a pocket of emptiness surrounded by the crushing weight of the deep ocean. When the water rushes back in to fill the void, the bubble collapses with terrifying force. For a brief, infinitesimal moment, the temperature inside that collapsing bubble rivals the surface of the sun. A flash of light appears, not from biology, but from pure heat. And then comes the shockwave. Imagine being the prey. You are swimming in the dark, and suddenly, there is a sound like a gunshot right beside your head. You aren't bitten. You aren't touched. But the shockwave from the collapsing bubble hits you like a physical hammer. It ruptures your swim bladder. It stuns your nervous system. It turns your internal organs into jelly. You are dead before you even realize you were under attack. The pistol maw doesn't need to outswim you. It just needs to get close enough to pull the trigger. This method, cavitation hunting, turns the water itself into a weapon. The sound of the snap is deafening, a sharp crack that echoes for miles through the silence of the deep. In a world where most predators try to remain unnoticed, the pistol maw is audaciously loud. It announces every kill with a sonic boom. But by the time you hear it, it is already too late. The predator simply swims through the cloud of stunned, drifting bodies, picking them off one by one, a sniper walking through a battlefield of its own making. The evolution of the pistol maul represents a terrifying leap in biological engineering. It has taken a mechanism found in tiny shrimp and scaled it up to a vertebrate predator, creating a creature that hunts with shockwaves rather than teeth. It is a reminder that nature is not just a biologist. It is a physicist, constantly experimenting with the limits of matter and energy. The maw doesn't play by the biological rules of predator and prey. It cheats. It uses the laws of thermodynamics to bypass the struggle entirely. But as violent as the pistol maw is, it still grants its victims a quick death. The shockwave is instant. There is no pain, no fear, just a sudden end. The same cannot be said for the creature that waits in the next act. Violence is one thing, but the loss of control, the loss of self, is a horror of a different magnitude. We are leaving the realm of physical weapons now and entering the domain of the psychological. The next hunter doesn't want to kill you. It wants to drive you. The pistol crack of the maw has faded, leaving only the ringing silence of the deep. We have seen predators that trap, lure, and blast their prey into oblivion. But these are physical threats. You can run from a shockwave, you can avoid a net if you are fast enough. What we face now, in the fifth act of our descent, is a horror that cannot be outrun because it begins inside you. We are entering the domain of the puppet masters, predators that have realized the most efficient way to hunt is not to fight your prey, but to own it. In the Twilight Zone, schools of squid move in synchronized, erratic patterns. But look closer. Some of them are not moving right. They are swimming upside down, or breaking formation to aggressively attack their own kind. Their skin flashes with colors that make no sense. Frantic, strobing warnings that communicate nothing but chaos. These animals are not diseased. They are possessed. Clinging to the base of their skulls, burrowed deep into the nerve bundles that control their motor functions, is a creature smaller than a fingernail, the Neurolure. The Neurolure is an evolutionary descendant of parasitic copepods and barnacles, but it has abandoned the simple life of a bloodsucker for something far more sinister. It does not just feed on fluids, it feeds on control. Once it attaches to a host, usually a mid-sized predator like a squid or a predatory fish, it extends fine, filament-like tendrils directly into the host's brainstem. It doesn't kill the host. That would be wasteful. Instead, it hijacks the host's dopamine and adrenaline receptors, flooding the creature's system with chemical commands. Imagine the horror of being a prisoner in your own body. You are a squid, intelligent and alert. You see a predator approaching, perhaps a larger shark or a diving whale. Your instinct screams at you to flee, to release ink, to hide. But your fins do not obey. Instead, a surge of artificial aggression floods your mind. You feel a compulsion, stronger than the will to survive, to swim directly toward the danger, to flash your colors brightly, to make yourself seen. You are not swimming to your death because you want to. You are doing it because the passenger on your neck demands it. This phenomenon, neural hijacking, is a terrifying efficiency upgrade for the parasite. The Neurolure uses its host as a vehicle to reach the next stage of its life cycle. It needs to be eaten by a larger predator to reproduce. So, it turns its host into a suicidal delivery system. The host becomes a zombie, a hyper-aggressive puppet that hunts fiercely to feed the parasite, only to offer itself up as a sacrifice when the time is right. The parasite gets a free meal and a free ride, all while the host watches its own demise from behind its own eyes. The body horror of this relationship is visible if you know where to look. The host animal often appears gaunt, its energy reserves depleted by the parasite's demands. But the most disturbing sign is the pulse. If you were to shine a light on the back of an infected fish's head, you would see the parasite throbbing rhythmically beneath the translucent skin, syncing its movements with the host's heartbeat. It is a second heart, a second brain driving the machine. The host is no longer an individual. It is a meat suit for a creature that views consciousness as just another mechanism to be hot-wired. This strategy reveals a chilling truth about the future ocean. Intelligence is a vulnerability. The more complex the brain, the more levers there are to pull. In a world where resources are scarce, the mind becomes a battlefield. The Neurolure doesn't need to be strong or fast. It just needs to understand the chemistry of desire and fear better than its victim does. It is a hacker in a biological network, exploiting zero-day vulnerabilities in the evolutionary code of its prey. We leave the possessed schools behind, their erratic movements fading into the darkness. We have witnessed the ocean's capacity for violence, for deception, and for violation. But we have not yet met the ruler of this dark kingdom. There is one final predator, a creature that combines the patience of the Titan, the deception of the Weaver, and the reach of the Wraith. It is not a parasite. It is not a gun. It is a god of the void, and it is waiting for us at the very bottom of the world. We have descended through the layers of the ocean, witnessing hunters that sleep in the mud, sing with electricity, build false homes, shoot with sonic bullets, and hijack the minds of the innocent. We have seen biology twisted into weapons of patience, violence, and psychological horror. But now we reach the very bottom, the abyss. Here, the pressure is absolute, the darkness is eternal, and the creatures that survive are not just predators, they are cosmic mistakes. In this final act, we meet the culmination of all these strategies, a creature that doesn't just hunt prey, it hunts entire ecosystems. Welcome to the court of the Emperor of the Void. In the deepest trenches, where the water is still and cold, evolution has stripped away everything unnecessary. Eyes are useless here, so the Emperor has none. Bones are a liability under such immense pressure, so it has none. Instead, it is a creature of pure gelatinous potential, a massive, drifting curtain of translucent flesh that spans nearly a mile across. To a human observer, it would look like a discarded plastic sheet floating in the dark, or perhaps a cloud of sea snot. But this is no passive drifter. This is the Abyssal Harvester, and it is the largest predator to ever live on Earth. The Harvester is not a single organism in the traditional sense, but a highly derived colony, similar to the Glass Weaver but on a planetary scale. It does not swim. It simply exists, suspended in the void by precise buoyancy control. Its strategy is the ultimate refinement of the slumbering Titan's patience and the static Wraith's lure. Hanging from its massive, umbrella-like body are millions of fine, sticky tendrils that drift downward like rain, covering thousands of square meters of the water column. It is not hunting a single fish. It is trawling the ocean itself. But the Harvester is not just a net. It is a lighthouse. Scattered across its vast body are thousands of bioluminescent nodes, pulsing with a slow, hypnotic rhythm. These lights do not mimic prey. They mimic stars. In the absolute blackness of the trench, where up and down are meaningless concepts, deep-sea creatures use the faint bioluminescence of the surface, or what they think is the surface, to orient themselves. The Harvester creates a false sky, a ceiling of lights that tricks the creatures below into swimming up, believing they are rising toward the nutrient-rich shallows. Imagine being a deep-sea scavenger, crawling along the bottom. You look up and see the familiar constellation of lights that signals food and open water. You push off the seabed, swimming slowly, hopefully, toward that distant galaxy. The journey takes hours. You never realize that the stars aren't getting closer because you are moving. They are getting closer because the sky is falling to meet you. The Harvester is slowly descending, wrapping the ocean around you like a shroud. When you finally touch the sky, there is no splash, no breach of the surface. There is only the sticky, stinging embrace of the tendrils. The lights you followed are actually digestive nodes, burning with cold chemical fire. As you struggle, your movement sends vibrations up the tendril to the main body, signaling the Harvester that dinner has arrived. It doesn't strike. It doesn't rush. It simply begins to retract the tendril, pulling you up into the gelatinous mass of its body, where you will be slowly absorbed over the course of weeks. The Abyssal Harvester is the ultimate expression of the future ocean's philosophy. Efficiency above all else. It does not waste energy chasing food. It does not waste energy fighting. It uses the prey's own instincts, the desire to rise, to find light, to seek the surface, against them. It is a predator that has weaponized hope. In the pitch-black silence of the trench, it has built a fake heaven to lure its victims into a very real hell. And so, we leave the future ocean here, in the dark, under the false stars of the harvester. We have seen how the pressures of a changing world can twist biology into nightmares. Evolution doesn't care about fairness. It doesn't care about mercy. It only cares about what works. And in the deep, silent future, the things that work are the things that wait, the things that deceive, and the things that make you want to be eaten. The ocean is still there, vast and beautiful, but the rules have changed. The hunters aren't coming for you anymore. They are already here and they are patient.